Ryan, and we decided to compare Fender and Gibson, the guitar companies, both very big influences in the music industry, and we used the 5 phases to determine similarities and differences in history, as well as products, corporate culture, and CSR. So Gibson, let me get my note cards, that way I know what I'm saying. Alright, Gibson was founded in 1898 by Orville Gibson, and he started it as a one-room workshop in Kalamazoo, Michigan. In 1904, he made it a public company, so they're over 100 years old, over a century years old. And then 1918, Lloyd Lohr became president when Orville Gibson died, and he took over. And between that time, he was just producing mandolins and like smaller string instruments as opposed to like any sort of guitars, because those were just like more popular, and those were, he wanted to find ways to like manufacture many, but while keeping high quality on them. And then Chicago music industry basically bought them out in 1944. And then in 1950, Ted McCarty became the next president of Gibson. And 2 years later, in 1952, they came out with the Les Paul, which is like their staple product. Like it's the most classic Gibson guitar there is. It is used by like Slash and Randy Rhoads when he was still playing around. And they decided to take the arch top design, which is like this kind of like, oops, I don't know what that is. This like curved top, and it's like similar to the acoustic guitars that they had at the time. And this is based off the model, the ES series, the Electric Spanish, which was the first kind of like acoustic electric series. And then after that, they decided to come out with the Gibson Flying V, the Explorer, and the Firebird, which were like really eccentric looking guitars. So they took about a year for them to get into the industry and like really start selling them, because people were kind of timid to buy them just because of how kind of wild they looked. Then they were bought out by Norland, and they experienced a kind of an era of corporate mismanagement, and that kind of led to just some things decreasing in quality, or they tried to mass produce and stuff. But then Henry Juskowitz became the next president after purchasing them in 1986 with a couple of his colleagues, and he was really profit driven, so that helped him in the short run, because it helped him get back on track. He really tried to set goals and really focus them in on their future, and that time he did a really good job, but later on it kind of came back because he kind of didn't change his ways. And after that, they moved their production plants to Montana and Tennessee, and Montana is in charge of their like acoustic models, while Tennessee is their custom shop and their electric.
All right, so Leo Fender began making stringed instruments in his workshop in Corona, California, and he wanted to improve on that arch top electric guitar design. So he just wanted to simplify it. So he just got this almost just a slab of wood, threw some strings on it and a pickup. In 1951, he released the Telecaster, which is why Fender has its name almost. And just like I said, it's got a simplified body, and it's in every genre of music, so players everywhere love it. And the success from that led to the release of a precision bass. And so precision bass and an amplifier. And so what Leo Fender's kind of like is the father of the modern rock band, like Beach Boys with their guitar and their bass, because as before, you'd have to have several different parts of the band, and you could only play to a small audience. Now with his amps and his electrified instruments, you can project sound throughout a whole stadium. And then he received feedback on the Telecaster because it was gaining in popularity, and the players of the Telecaster said that they wanted it to be easier to play like the upper registry of the neck, so it would be like this area, and more tonal, like to control the tone as they're playing, and they wanted to be more comfortable. So that is how the Stratocaster came to be, and is probably the most recognizable guitar out of any. You see it with Jimi Hendrix right there. John Mayer plays one. Eric Clapton, Joe Walsh. I don't know if any of you guys know those people. And so they continue to be the most kind of innovative guitar brand. They released the Jazzmaster, the Jaguar, and the Mustang after that, and along with more basses. Then improved the amps, more availability of amps from size, different sounds on stage and studio equipment, so in-ear pieces for on stage, microphones, accessories for guitars, picks, straps, strings, pickups, and then cases, and they expanded their clothing line in recent years.
Because Gibson and Fender are competitors, they share a lot of the same product line because, you know, one comes out with something, they just match it, try to get their loyal customers to like purchase their own because they have that like strong customer base. So they also offer their line of guitars. They have, again, the Gibson Flying V, the Explorer, the Firebird, and then the SG and the Les Paul, which is like their most iconic guitar. And they also came out with their own line of basses based off those models. Not me. They also have audio equipment, which is like a bunch of subsidiaries. They have anything ranging from anything to like desk speakers to like put in like restaurants or like any sort of venues that may need either live entertainment or just straight up like recordings. They also have accessories for their guitars, which is where like their guitar care products also come into play. And they have cases that come with their guitars, the clothing line. And the difference between the guitars of Fender and Gibson is that Fender kind of took its time and limited themselves to like really focusing on their innovation, which is why they had the Telecaster and then the Stratocaster, which was the one that we just saw. And during that time, Gibson put out like 3 new guitars. So they were kind of just like going, hoping that they would strike lucky with one and then that they would all catch on. Whereas Fender was really focusing in on innovating the Stratocaster and making it the most versatile like guitar that there is on the market.
And when it comes to the company culture, it seems that like Fender's doing just about the bare minimum to keep their employees happy. You know, on Glassdoor it said that they were underpaid, underappreciated, and the CEO they said lacked the knowledge of the guitar industry. He was at Disney and then he was at Quicksilver. Found his way to Fender, and they reported that there's no interaction with the assemblers in the manufacturing plant. I mean, it's actually in a different state because the headquarters, the corporate is in Arizona, and so yeah, culture at Fender is not great, but the employees said that their love for the brand makes it bearable, and like they love what they do, they love the products that they're creating, so they can take it even though they don't have any confidence in upper management.
And with these two big companies, we expected a little bit different, especially we would expect one of them to have, you know, on par management, but both seemed a little bit more on the subpar side, which is why they're kind of comparable. So like it was really hard to find a mission statement, and like I just couldn't find one at all. But they have like some statements here and there about like some goals that they have, but they're really short term and they're just more about like the products they have. Their management is like kind of obscure and like it's really it's not directed in any sort of way. And the employees there say that they have a problem with like lack of respect and like there's no upward mobility, so they're kind of stuck where they are, and they'll say on Glassdoor like they'll work you till you die, like that's just you'll be in that same spot. Also on Glassdoor, the people at Fender don't do this, but previous employees at Gibson go as far to say like just do not apply, don't work here, it's not worth it. Like the brand, like there's loyal employees that like love the brand, they'll do it like Gibson, but there's more that outweigh based on like, okay, we had a really bad experience, we don't really, if you love music, there's many other things you can do besides this.
And so just like what I said earlier, Fender doing the bare minimum to keep the employees happy, they're doing just about the bare minimum with CSR. I mean, they were involved with Little Kids Rock, which is a program that donated guitars and products and money to inner city schools that were underfunded in the music programs. And then the former CEO left, I believe his name was Bill Mondello. And in 2008, the Fender Music Foundation was founded, and they just about did the same thing that the Little Kids Rock organization does, so they just kind of took it on themselves. And that's about it for the CSR from Fender.
Gibson is really engaged in their corporate social responsibility. They have more involvement, and they have the Gibson Foundation, which kind of lets them give back to charity through different kinds of organizations, such as the Les Paul Innovation Award Fund, which gives a good amount of money to Belmont College for their music department, for faculty and students. And there's also Kids Rock the Nation, which has provided over 1,000 guitars for children of different kinds of various needs, whether it be failing health, like with the Make-A-Wish Foundation, who they paired up with, and they give kids the opportunity to make their like dream guitar, or whether it be just kids who are socially just either being bullied or like some sort of social clubs that support those types of kids because they feel like through music they can learn how to express themselves and gain confidence and do these types of things. And there was also the Tennessee Kidney Foundation, which was more of like a way to give back locally because they operate in Tennessee and they give back to this foundation to kind of thank the community for letting them operate in their state and like mostly like in their area in Memphis.
Oh, and another thing about the CSRs that we're concerned about is both of the companies use the rarest of woods in the world, and so they're tearing down trees to get the wood in these remote forests, and none of their donations are going to environmental programs. Like there's just no money in going into like taking care of the trees that they cut down in the rainforest, which is surprising because without those resources they don't have the guitars that they make. So we thought that was kind of surprising.
It's just a matter of sustainability. How are they supposed to like put it back in if they're not doing anything to preserve the resources that they're taking from? And if so, they're just going to run out. And then Gibson, I think we're going to start to conclude now, basically trying to figure out which of the two we thought was better. And I'll start with Gibson. Gibson does more based on corporate social responsibility. However, their employee base is really unhappy. Henry Juskowitz was very profit-based, and his motives are strictly profits, and he uses fear and intimidation for his leadership style, which kind of throws a lot of people off, especially like upper management. Like that's how he treats his upper management, whether it be for vacation days or just any leeway on anything. He's really strict in the way he operates, and that bleeds down into the unhappiness of upper management, which in turn makes any sort of employee on the manufacturing base really kind of on edge because they want to be able to put out these great products and stuff, but they're worried about like their either job security or just like their job in general. They want to be happy with what they're doing because if you're in that business, you want to make great guitars. Like that's what you're there to do, and that's just been a problem since Henry Juskowitz hasn't changed his ways of leadership.
And like he said, the Gibson former employees said, do not work at Gibson. Whereas the Fender employees said, yeah, if you like making guitars and you like what goes into doing it, it's bearable, and you can say that. So that Fender has the upper hand on that. What it really came down to, because it's so hard to pick between the two, was just the financials. Last year, Gibson had a net loss, whereas Fender actually made some money. I think the sales were in like $700 million or something like that. But we said that it has nothing to do with the management. We actually think that the Fender company's lack of knowledge of the guitar industry actually might have helped them more than the Gibsons. They were focusing on an online market and producing, like selling guitars online, which doesn't really make sense if you're a guitar player because you'd want to feel the guitar and play it before you buy it. So that didn't really go anywhere. They're not talking. They don't really communicate much with the custom shop and the luthiers in California. They kind of been doing their own thing, producing good guitars over the years. So what it came down to was the finances, and we decided that Fender just was barely managed better just because that they're selling more, producing more. But with that being said, both brands are going to be fine because of brand recognition. I mean, guitar players do not care about the corporate culture and everything like that. The 1960s Les Paul or Stratocaster is like the holy grail of guitars. So that the brand recognition that have built up from the past will carry them, I think, through the next few years, even though their management is bad and they're making poor decisions when it comes to innovation and things like that.
So in conclusion, we believe that Fender is the better management company simply because their employees are more loyal to the brand and they're willing to deal with any sort of corporate mismanagement. It's not even truly mismanagement, it's just the way they're treated because their love for the brand is like the intrinsic reward for them. They like really see the finished product as their pride and joy. Like they're in it for the long run. And again, like he was saying, there's not a lot of communication between the upper management and like the luthiers, which are like guitar craftsmen. Like those are the people who make the custom orders. They take custom orders and they just like they're just made to order guitars that are just like perfect in every way, just because they craft them on their own. And in addition to that, that just leaves them with the best products on the market. And with all that in total, Fender is the better manager of the two companies.
Questions?